So the Skype. Just cut me off because I'll keep talking. I'll straight up keep talking. Just cut me off. Yeah. Years. And like some of the Robs, good morning. I was talking to him. Because they're coming. Yeah, it's also. Yeah. Well, so like I was talking like in terms of presentation, right? Like I've had some difficulty. I'm not a good topic, but like this is like 18 months of my life work, right? Like, I can do this. This is my dissertation. Yeah, literally. I've been prepping for this for 18 months. I know what happens. Yeah. No, I think people are starting to. Yeah. All right, guys, how are we doing today? Oh, we still got people coming through. I want to get this session started fairly quickly. We do have, as far as sessions go, I think this, as far as an information, is going to be the most.
Are we shared live?
I believe so. You know, double check.
Yep. Sorry, folks, just making sure that we are on the Zoom.
You good?
Yep. Yep. I love that part of my job. Come on. And I hate interrupt.
Yeah, we do have a lot of information to go over today. There is a pretty drastic overhaul of sort of what we've been doing in the past versus what we're going to do now. Two things I want to sort of address before we get in too deep. All of this is like per the publishers, so this could change. Right now, I'm pretty confident it's going to stay the way it is, but at the end of the day, the publishers can and do sometimes have to move things around. And the second piece is all of this information will be posted in the Discord. So don't get too caught up on sort of like some of this granular information, and because there's a lot of dates in here as far as registration open, registration closed, playoff dates. All this is publicly available. I'll post to the Discord again, so don't worry too much about taking incredibly detailed notes. But with that being said, I'm going to sort of pop right into it. The first big thing is there are changes to sort of how we've done this league structure. Previously, we had the Challenger, the Open, and the Varsity divisions. Now we're switching to two main tiers. You have the Varsity Division and you have the Open Division. Now, Varsity Division is exclusive to NACE members only. So the affiliate program has been completely sunset. There's no affiliates that will be competing in Varsity this year. Varsity is 100% NACE members. Now, for the Open Division, NACE members are more than welcome to play there if they would like, but there will be club teams there and sort of any other program in between. The Open Division is sort of meant for everybody else. Within these two divisions, there are two different leagues. So you have the Varsity Premier Division. This is our premier product. It's one team per school. No limit to the number of schools. And then you have sort of Varsity 2. Is this not showing it? Good call. We know the problem. I don't know how to get it on Zoom. I can't really.
Go back to Zoom. Are you on Zoom?
I'm right. I'm on Zoom over here.
Okay.
It's this one.
Share that one. Yeah. That should be full
Yeah.
screen.
Yep. Yeah. So within the varsity division, there will be the first division, which is varsity premier, one team per school. Teams will be split off regionally, and they will be snake drafted in the conferences. Varsity 2 is sort of a different model altogether. So the whole premise of Varsity 2, and all of this has come from member feedback, is last year in a lot of these divisions, a lot of the games were really lopsided. And some of the teams were losing, and they were losing badly. And there was nothing you could learn. It was very demoralizing for the program. It was demoralizing for the students. We had some teams that wanted to withdraw. So we completely recreated what it meant for the Varsity 2 league. So the way it's going to work now is you're going to have 8 team conferences, and the top 8 highest ranking teams will be in the first conference. The top 8 or the second like 8 through 16 will be in the second conference, and so on and so forth, in order to create sort of a season that should give you a bunch of 50-50 matches. Our goal for the Varsity 2 division was competitive games that provided good experience for your players, somewhere where they can come in and they could really learn and develop instead of just getting smacked around for an entire season. Open 2 functionally works the same way as Varsity 2, except for their groups of 16. And sort of Open Premier is very similar to Varsity Premier. It's one team per school, and all the other teams from that school would be eligible for Open 2. For conferences, they're going to be, again, regionally based. Previously years, we've done like kind of hyper specific regions like Northeast. This year, we're sort of moving away from that into more of an East versus West model. That way, for instance, the Canadian teams don't all get stuck playing in the Canadian teams. We wanted to give you guys a little bit of a little bit of variety in who you play. Now the conferences are still going to be seeded, but the conferences are going to be larger geographically in order to encompass a variety of matchups. This is sort of the full list of competitive titles we're looking to host competition for in some form in the upcoming year. Some of these are league titles. Some of these are circuit titles. Some of these have their own unique formats altogether. We're still working on additional games that could be announced in the future. But I'm going to go through each of these games and sort of go over what the format's going to look like so that we have a better idea of what competition is going to look like in 2022 and 2023. So for the varsity titles, this is what we're looking to field for varsity. And then open division, obviously you see the addition of Dota 2. This is exactly what we did last year. So you guys should be familiar with these titles. Just to go through it, we have Rocket League, CSGO, League of Legends, Call of Duty, Smash, and Overwatch for the varsity, and the same thing for open with the addition of Dota 2. These are the tentative weekly match days. These are what we've moved forward with the publishers. This schedule has been posted for months. It's been in the Discord. But for some of you, I know this will be the first time you see it. Monday will be Rocket League. Tuesday will be Overwatch. Wednesday's Call of Duty and Dota 2. Thursday, Super Smash Ultimate. That's crew battles. That's 4v4. And then Friday is CSGO. For the varsity division, we will be having broadcasts for these games. Exactly like last year, you're going to have to fill out the form. Do you have a question?
Yeah. League of Legends was on the varsity side, but it's not listed on the weekly matches.
So League of Legends, we're still in sort of negotiations with Riot. There's a couple different things we're looking to do. Last year, we ran the sort of JV model for everyone. We're currently attempting to become a partner conference for CLAW. And if that happens, that will drastically change sort of how this is structured because it'll be a part of the greater CLAW ecosystem. So we're still like TBD on sort of what it's going to look like, but the goal is to host League of Legends competition.
And then for Smash, is it only crew battles like 4v4?
So for Smash specifically, this is sort of the league titles. This is not the circuit titles or the one-off titles. Smash from the league perspective will be 4v4 crew battles. We are looking to plan a couple one-off Smash tournaments throughout the year for 1v1s to support the solo players, but our primary offering for Smash will be crew battles. Can we hold questions to the end? Because I think I will get to a lot of your questions, and we do have a ton of information to go through. And if you need to chime in, let me know. I'm gonna keep going. So again, don't focus too hard on sort of these minute details. All of this is posted in the Discord, and I will repost it again. Same thing, we have your regular season game days. The big thing to remember is registration for all of our products for the fall will open on August 1st. So on August 1st, you should be able to log in the League Spot and sign up all of your teams you want to do. So if there's one thing to take away from this slide, is that August 1st is when registration opens, and August 28th is when it closes, or closes for the regular season for the league titles. But a lot of these other events, Fortnite, Hearthstone, will have different registration windows, but they will all be opening on August 1.
JJ, just want to add one thing. I think it's really important when you do look at this, and this is the same for Varsity Premier, Open, Varsity 2+. Everything is transitioning to a round robin model. So at the highest levels to kind of these lower tier divisions, we're moving away from Swiss. I think this new model where you are grouped with 8 teams that are as close as possible to you in rank sort of gives you the benefits of Swiss. You know, by the end of the season, you're playing more competitive games, but it also gives you the benefits of round robin where your schedule is known right from the start, advanced scheduling, so you can kind of plan accordingly. So hopefully this is a nice kind of middle ground that really captures the benefits of both formats.
Sort of add on that, and I should have talked about this a couple slides ago. The entire purpose of Varsity 2 was to address 2 main complaints we got from membership. They want to have competitive matches, right? Nobody wants to be blown out every night. So we had to develop a system that could give you competitive matches. But we needed to balance that with the fact that varsity programs need to be able to advertise their matches. They need to be able to market their matches. They need to be able to stream their matches. So that's sort of the brainchild of how the Varsity 2 division came to be. This is sort of, this is the same slide I just showed you, but this is with the Varsity 2. The Varsity 2 has it starts a little bit later because they're more self-contained and they have a smaller postseason. So the registration window for Varsity 2, while still opening up at August 1st, instead of closing at the end of August, closes on September 12th. So this is just the dates for that. Again, don't get too worried about this. All this information will be publicly available in the Discord, and it'll go out via email. Same thing, but for Open Premier, again, Open Premier has a later window. It's designed for more sort of club specific teams to come in, and they're sort of less organized, but that's why we have the Varsity and the Varsity 2 schedule. And this is the Open 2 schedule.
One more thing, just wanted to add and make sure everybody's aware. We are sort of adding this concept of a last chance qualifier. So if you do not make it into the playoffs in the first go, second and third from each of the conferences, specifically to the Premier divisions, second and third will have a chance to play in the last chance qualifier and earn a few extra bids into the playoffs.
Yeah. So another thing that changed here, and you have generic windows of the playoffs, but we condensed our playoffs down to 16 teams so that instead of having, like last season, there was a playoff week where some of the top teams had 4 or 5 games in a week. That's mostly eliminated except for the conference finals or the last rounds of the playoffs. But for most of the playoffs, you should only have 1 game a week. And that was a big point of contention from some of the teams that were participating, was that their players were competing so often. So we did sort of condense the playoffs down. We added this concept of an LCQ in order to give all the teams a chance to qualify. And then we run in the playoffs, which will be a round of 16 into sort of the grand finals. So this is a further breakdown of sort of how the Varsity will work. We already sort of verbally explained this, but this is really good for visual learners. So the top 8 teams will be in Division 1, 9 through 16 will be in Division 2, 16 through 24 will be Division 3. Sort of that is the model moving forward, and it's order to give you very competitive games. The Varsity Division, from a structural perspective, as far as like how the games are played, is very similar. It is a round robin, and then for the Premier divisions, there is the LCQ, there is the round of 16, there is the conference finals, and then the overall playoffs. Scholarship prizing for the Varsity divisions will exist exclusively in Varsity Premier. So Varsity 2 does not have scholarship prizing behind it. And the second and third place finishers from the Varsity Premier Conferences will be invited to the LCQ. So that's sort of how you get into the LCQ. It'll be a tournament that's sort of run down in a week. Again, we are broadcasting the Varsity Division, specifically at this point, the Varsity Premier Division. Select matches will be broadcasted on sort of the game days, Mondays, Rocket League. Similar to last year, you will have to fill out the form to get your team on the list to be contacted for broadcasts. And the broadcast will be located on the NACE Sports channel and the NACE Starleague channel. If your institution is selected for a broadcast, there's a high likelihood you'll have to move the default time of the day, because everybody's default is sort of 7 o'clock, and we have a 5 to 6 hour broadcast window. This is just sort of more details on Varsity 2. It is round robin, but their playoffs will be a self-contained playoffs amongst everybody in their conferences. It's formatted to provide the highest level of quality of competition for each team. Competitors are grouped on skill. They'll be competing with about 8 teams, 7 or more teams that are similar ranked. The highest ranked group will be referred to as Varsity 2. The second highest will be Varsity 3, et cetera, and so on. And there's no limit to the number of teams you can put in this sort of division, right? So if you have 5 Rocket League teams, your first team would go into the Varsity Premier Division, and then your next 4 would be submitted here. Open Premier is a very close mirror to the Varsity Division, and the Open 2 is a very close mirror to the Varsity 2 division. So this is
talk about the seating committee between LCQ and playoffs.
take it. Sure.
Just again, for everybody's reference, before we head into the playoffs, the teams that qualify through conference championships, the teams that qualify through the LCQ, there will then be a seating committee specific to each game that will help seed the actual playoff.
And for like the visual purposes, the seating committee is in between these 2 dates. The actual LCQ and the playoffs. That's why that gap is built into the schedule. So for this year, because of the nature of how Overwatch 2 is getting released, we are having sort of an Overwatch 1. I'm going to call it more of an event. It's less of a season. It will be a couple of qualifiers to determine the top 8. You can see sort of the registration windows right there. Qualifier 1, Qualifier 2 into a top 8 finals. But for fall, our primary offering will be Overwatch 2. It is the same amount of games as every other league, but it is more of a condensed schedule. The reason is because Overwatch 2 comes out literally the day registration closes, and match 1 will be the following week. So we did have sort of a condensed timeline. The current way Overwatch 2 is structured is there will be 2 games a week. I believe it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. As you can see, like match 1's 10-11, match 2's 10-13. And that's in order to get the matches in so we can still fit into once we hit the playoff schedule, the LCQ, this is the same sort of timeline after that as all of the other games. So once you get the playoffs for these titles, you will be on sort of the same schedule as all your other teams.
Quick question on this. Once we register the team for Overwatch, they automatically Overwatch 2, or do we get registered?
No, it will be fundamentally 2 different events. This is just sort of another breakdown / overview of the fall schedule. Again, wouldn't worry too much about this. All this will be posted in the Discord, so you don't need to get lost on the minutia of the notes. Fortnite is operating exactly the same as it did last year, other than the fact that we're doing twice as much. So last year we ran 1 split in each semester. This year we'll be doing 2 splits in each semester, but the caveat being the second split is going to be on the new 0 build mode, which I think is really cool. There'll be regional opens. There's 3. And in the opens, you'll earn points for how you finish, but also the top finishers will automatically qualify for the playoffs or the collegiate championship. So if your team qualifies in open 1, if you don't want to play and you have something else to do, you don't need to play in any of the events. If you're looking for competition for your players, so you can play in them all. I know we had schools that did both. There was some schools that wanted all the competition they could get, and they competed in all of the events. And then we had some competitors who just qualified and then played in the collegiate championship. So this is really designed to give your program the flexibility it needs, sort of meet all the needs of the students in the program. Hearthstone, again, is operating exactly the same as it did last year, with the caveat of we're just doing more. So we ran 4 Hearthstone qualifiers last year. This year we're running 6. It's running through the exact same model. They're going to compete in a Swiss style tournament. Will be day one into a top 8 knockoff playoffs in day 2. You get points for how you finish in the event. Those points stack up over the course of the year. So top placing participants will earn points, which ultimately decide who the finalists that will compete in the spring finals. And then the open qualifying is obviously be throughout the year. And this is sort of the schedule we have for Hearthstone. An awesome new addition that I'm super excited about for NACE this year is chess. This is just sort of the fall offering. That the spring offering's a team based, but that's sort of not out yet. But for this is a solos tournament. There'll be weekly Swiss tournaments. And at the end of the sort of Swiss tournaments, all the players will be seeded into their own like 16-team bracket based off how they finished. So similar to Varsity 2, the top 16 will be in Division 1, next 16 will be in Division 2, next season will be in Division 3, in order to give them sort of a competitive playoff system for everybody. The other new addition we have this year is iRacing. I'm also really excited about this, and shout out to Josh for helping lead the way on the NACE end for a very long time to get this off the ground. We had our first sort of spring event this year. We're looking to do just more. So we have 4 races scheduled. Players will sign up for the race. They play the time attack for 2 weeks to see who can get the fastest time. And then the registered students who have the fastest times will qualify for the race. And again, there's a lot of technical stuff here, the B-class racing, the licensing stuff. If you have any questions about all the NASCAR stuff, I would go ahead and just DM me on the side, because a lot of this is pretty interesting, and it's not quite where the rest of the sports are esports wise. So we're definitely trying to educate our members on sort of iRacing. And I know that we had the emerging esports panel where we sort of went over a lot of this earlier yesterday.
I just want to call out 2 important things I think we're doing with iRacing this fall that are a little different than in the spring. For the fall, depending on how you do in each of the races, you'll actually earn points. And then at the end of the season or at the end of the series, there will be additional pricing available kind of for the people that do the best consistently throughout the series. And another thing I think that's important is, instead of just having the top 40 drivers have a chance to actually participate in a race, there will be, JJ touched on it, sort of a B-class race. It's not going to be necessarily broadcasted, not necessarily going to be prized, but it will be an opportunity for those drivers to have kind of a chance on the track to prove themselves against other racers.
You'll notice a reoccurring theme as we go through all of these sort of titles. What we did last year, we're doing more. We want to engage more students. We want to offer more competition. We want to give more touch points for them to do what they want to do. So we're just trying to do more with everything. Moving in, this is the spring schedule. We've already worked on the schedule. Again, wouldn't get lost in this. All this will be publicly available. Big thing is registration is going to open for December 5th for everything in the spring. But yeah, I'm very excited that we're at the point where we're starting to post schedules months and months and months in advance instead of waiting to the last minute. Going forward, slide changes. Yeah, this is the same thing for Varsity 2. Spring schedule, same sort of open registration, open premiere. And now we are at the questions portion of this. And I know there's going to be a lot, so I want to do a lot of significant amount of time to get to what you wanted. So typically it's 7 o'clock, either east or west, depending on the division you're in. I know that for some of the open titles where there's not enough to run an east and a west, they will be combined and there will be some sort of hybrid start time. Last year there was, I think, 3 divisions in sort of open that had the hybrid start times, and it was 8:30. We tried to split the difference because we know that it can't be too early, or the West Coast teams aren't out of classes yet, and if it's too late, the East Coast teams are going to be up to midnight.
So for Varsity 2+ and Open 2+, let's say you have 2 teams from the same school who happen to be around the same skill level. Is there a chance they both end up in the same, or will you make an effort to split them so you have maybe 1 team in Varsity 2 and 1 in Varsity?
So the question was, if you have 2 teams in Varsity 2 and they're of similar or same rank, will we be splitting them? That is actually not a question we've gotten. That's not a question we've received yet. My initial thought would be they'd probably be together, but I can see why we'd want to split them. And it's something that I'll definitely go back to the CC for and just kind of get a final feel on how that is. because I know that it's no fun to just go in and play against your own team. Online, someone said, can a single school have a varsity team and an open team? So the answer is yes. If you're an ACE member, you can field a team in varsity 1. You can field another 4 teams in varsity 2 if you want. You can field another team in open premier. You can field another 4 in open 2. It's really whatever you want. With the only caveat being varsity premier and open premier are limited to 1 team per school. All the way in the back.
Yeah, so 2 questions. How you guys are gonna determine the ranking system? And then, 2 is like, last year you guys had some problems with the algorithm, and I'm not sure if that was league spots of like playoffs and seeding, and if you guys have plans to fix that from last year.
What was the first question? I'm sorry. I'm trying to get it. I need to repeat it for the.
The first question is like, how are you determining ranking?
Oh, okay. So the first question was, how do you determine ranks on the platform? So last year, what happened was that ranks had to be manually reported. And then obviously there was some error in that. There's error anytime a human touches it. And so that led to some mismatched seating. Moving forward, there are titles that you're still going to have to manually report because not all titles have open API. But we are currently working with our partners on getting sort of rank pool data for the games that can, so that we can just pull account information and seed them. But currently for most of the titles, you will have to self-report rank. And then the second question was, oh, the seeding. So the second question was, last year during playoffs, there was a mess with the algorithm and it did seed teams incorrectly throughout the playoffs. And the admins had to jump in and manually move some stuff around. Full disclosure, that algorithm problem was fixed in like 4 days. So that has been fixed for months. It won't happen again. I'm really excited to have the platform partners we do because they're great to work with. The other question online, has there been any thought or care in scheduling Canadian schools? Registration closes the day before we even start school. So we do have mixed representation on the CC. We do have a Canadian school on the CC. For the varsity division, because of everything we needed to accomplish, the registration window had to be open pretty early. The goal for the varsity division is that you do have a full-time staffer there to assist with the process, and so they can sign up the players for them. I know that every year we sort of do get a couple comments about how early the registration window is, but in order to accomplish everything we needed to accomplish, we've already cut a lot of other stuff from the schedule, and there really isn't any wiggle room to push it further back. Sean.
Just on that same question, I know in the past, you've been able to kind of register your team, but without players yet, to make it in by the deadline, but then add the players, as school starts. Is that still a thing? Or?
So I have to get back to you on that. I don't believe that's possible at this very moment, but what can happen is, let's say that you have 10 players in your League of Legends team. As long as you do have 5 people on the roster, you will clear through the registration window. So all you got to do is get your players on. Now, the cool thing about LeagueSpot is once your players sign up on LeagueSpot, they don't have to do anything else ever again, and the coach can do whatever. So for LeagueSpot, you can literally generate a custom URL code, and you can invite your player directly to your institutional hub. And once they're in there, you can drag and drop them to any team you want, wherever you want. My recommendation is, if you got in a position where you didn't have players on your team, you literally could take 3 players or 5, let's use League of Legends team for example. You take your League of Legends team, if you have 5 players signed up, you can sign up for League of Legends, and I would slam all those players on all the other rosters just to break it through the registration window and then remove them later. So there's a lot of wiggle room on what you can do to get through the registration window if you don't have your entire starting roster.
On note of that, is there already like roster lock periods that happen over?
So roster lock, the way it's currently constructed, and we actually got a bunch of cool new features on LeagueSpot to address some of the problems we've had throughout the year. The rosters do lock at playoffs. So you won't be adding more players to the team once playoffs start. Additionally, I believe the roster lock window is 24 hours before the game too. Yeah, so we also have a match specific roster lock that's happening 24 hours before each match. Okay. And within the rules, just in case there's anything weird that happens, we do have a rule for 1 emergency sub to kind of like break the roster lock window. The only caveat to that is you will have to reach out to an admin to manually override the roster lock.
We can just call your home number.
I mean, you have my cell phone. So currently that's an extremely gray area, and that's something that would need to probably be flagged to the admins. It would be handled on a case by case basis by the competition council.
I think to your point, heading into playoffs, so is that premier level, or is that seating committee that will be individually looking at each one of the teams?
Not saying that happened.
I think it was specifically to the divisions that were seated based, like the ranked seed divisions open 2 and varsity 2. So Valorant is another thing. We've been waiting on sort of the CVAL announcement, and it came out what last Thursday, last Friday. We're actively working on getting Valorant licensing. It's in the very early stages, but I fully expect to be able to field Valorant in some capacity in the spring and the fall too. And just to repeat that, the question was, what are we doing with Valorant? All in the back. So again, with Valorant, we're still working on licensing. And then for Smash for the solos, it's not going to be a circuit event like it was last year. It will be more like a couple one-off individual tournaments that are self-contained. The question is dates for Smash and Valorant. Steven. So the concept of the circuit really in its truest form kind of only works for Hearthstone right now. Hearthstone circuit, and then we are doing the points with iRacing, so that's pseudo circuit. And then Fortnite's are self-contained championships in themselves, so it's not even a circuit model as much as it's 2 self-contained championships per split. So right now the circuit model is sort of only being applied to Hearthstone.
Are there any movements to offer more regular singles for Smash Bros. And/or including more fighting titles?
So the question was, is there any drive to do more with sort of Smash Crews and then kind of any other fighting title? So I'll address the first. We sort of did the circuit last year, and we had a kind of overwhelming feedback that programs were looking for more of a team aspect to Smash. I know there are people that are pushing for solos. Currently, there's no plan to bring the circuit system back. With that being said, if that's something you would like to see, my recommendation is to continue to get feedback to the competition council and sort of go through those means, because the competition council is who has sort of final approval there. But the feedback we've received in the last 2 seasons was to move us to Cruise. And then when we switched to Cruise, we got overwhelming feedback that this is what they wanted to happen. Did I get both your questions?
Are we going to see any more fighting games?
Are we going to see any more fighting game titles? So typically at the end of each semester, we do send out a survey, and in the survey, it's how is the season and sort of questions like that. But then at the bottom, the last question is typically what games are you fielding teams for? And we take that data and we bring it back to the competition council. And any sort of title that has widespread support or is gaining adoption, we do start working with publishers, and we do start the licensing process. So if there's a title that we don't have that you would like to see, A, fill out the surveys that we send out at the end of the semester. B, talk to your elected officials. Any other questions? James.
For Smash, are we switching from the best of 1 for the season and doing best of 3?
We switched to best of 3, didn't we? So we switched to best of 3 for the postseason. The question is Smash moving to best of 3? Currently, as constructed, the regular season is best of 1, and then the entire playoff system is best of 3. You can keep going.
I think there was a lot of feedback to switch to best of 1 during the season for best of 3 because, for example, like some of my students are community, so they might drive an hour to do Smash and only play for 40 minutes, and then drive an hour back home. And the streaming broadcasting for Smash is very small.
So I think the
Best of 3, you can change your characters. There's a lot of feedback.
I saw operations plus the competition council. I've seen a lot of feedback on both sides. There is a group of schools that believe that a best of 3 is more competitively integral, and there's also a group of schools that believe having a whole best of 3 for Cruise could take the entire night and run their players pretty late. So we tried to balance that in between the regular season and the postseason, because currently, as constructed with the LCQ, groups are groups of 8, and the top 3 teams will have some chance at postseason. The first one, the number 1 team auto qualifies for the conference championship, and 2 and 3 get invited to the LCQ. So the goal was, as the season progresses, to offer more touch points for competition. But when the CC met and talked about the whole thing, sort of the consensus was they didn't want the games happening that long every week throughout the regular season. Anybody else? All in the back.
Directly, we influence to ask for more like rule changes, like how is the process to get started?
So the competition council has complete authority over the rule sets. So there's a couple different ways to sort of voice your concerns and looking for things. The 2 drivers that I see right now, there are 3. There's the member general channel in Discord. There's the leadership feedback channel in Discord. And then there's just talking to not only the staff, but also the leadership. The competition council at the end of the day does have the final authority over the rule sets. So any kind of rule set change that goes will go through them. Thank you. Yeah, I keep referring to the competition council. In this room, we have Adam. He's the chair of the CC.
I mean, overall, I think the sentiment of the CC was like, we're open to the best of 3, but we're just gonna start with best of 3 in playoffs this year and then reevaluate based on feedback from all the membership. But if there's a strong sentiment to move that to the whole season, I'm very, you just DM me, you can have that conversation. There's only a couple of us that are very familiar with Smash on the CC. We have 10 members when we're fully elected, and not all of us are experts on every game title, so we seek out experts in the space. I know Chase Newcomb is our kind of resident Smash expert, and we lean on those experts in the space on those specific titles to give us the best direction we can in those conversations, but not everyone's opinion is going to get shared on that, so please reach out. We talk about this stuff all the time. We go back and forth. You guys have a strong sentiment.
I enjoy the best of 1 thing. So much shorter.
Curtis, you said your mic's dead, right? Okay. Because we want to give the mic to the people that have long answers, but the mic's dead. Come on, Doc. I know you got a million questions.
I have 2 questions. 1, how dare you? And 2, who do you think you are?
I'm JJ. I'm the director of competition. I report to the CC.
Good question. But I just want to get that, how dare you?
Thanks for the t-shirt. I love Doc. Go.
So you mentioned that there was a point in between the LCQ and the rest of the playoffs where there was a committee to decide seeding for that. Is that just the competition council? Who's the people who are on the seeding board, and how do they get elected or appointed?
The competition council is not the ones doing the seating, but they will be the ones picking the people who are doing the seating.
It'll be on me.
The question was, who is doing the seating for the playoffs? That was actually a really good question.
Full transparency, the goal is to get the context or the content experts for each game title. Similar to like the coaches poll where we try to find like the experts and ask them. That's the goal, and the goal for seeding is to make sure that like we're in a low conference and went undefeated, that someone in a hard conference and went undefeated would be seated above you. Like that's really the goal, and to make sure that the top 2 teams in the game title don't end up playing each other round 1.
And I think the third piece was preventing round 1 rematches from conferences.
Yes, that is what.
Anybody else? With everything, it's a growing process, right? Like I was lucky enough to be elected to the first sort of iteration of the competition council, along with Adam and some of the other people in this room. And the amount our competition has improved since 2018 is incredibly impressive, and I'm incredibly proud of what we were able to do in the last few years. And again, as you've seen, like the kind of the recurring thing is like we're doing what we did well, and we want to do more of it. Any other questions?
When will this slide show be shared?
I can share this almost immediately after this. I can put it in Discord.
Because some of my questions, I think, are kind of built around that, but I want to review the slide before I make it.
And again, like if you have any questions about competition, like not here, you can go ahead and DM me if you're uncomfortable bringing it up in sort of this group setting. You can DM me. I'm available to my members all the time. So,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I do and you and AJ like all the time.
and that's perfectly fine though. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to serve membership.
I know. You pay their salary. I mean, like AJ responded at like 2 a.m. What the heck? Like, I'm still working.
This is Mikey. Mikey is my competition support specialist. Mikey, it tends to be, at least for the NACE server, he's on the first line at nights during competition.
Yeah, y'all do a great job as well. I don't think there's any.
Thank you. All the way to the back.
Any thoughts adding cross-conference play?
So the question was, is there any thought in adding cross-conference play into the league structure? So at one point, and this is pretty much last fall, we were planning for what this fall could look like. And at one point, we did have an iteration of cross-conference play. The problem we keep running into is that there's not enough games and there's not enough time to have a meaningful season while diluting it in sort of that matter. And we played around with the dates, and like we've already talked about earlier how some schools are having issues with the registration being as early as it is. And there were some strong pushes to add a sort of cross-conference model. But the working group that was working on it and the CC, we could not find a way that could provide meaningful competition while supporting sort of the cross-conference model.
Previous session, you mentioned Overwatch 2 going to Thursdays as well. Is that still the case?
So Overwatch 2 is currently slated, and I can go back to the slide, but it's slated to be 2 days a week because Overwatch 2 is happening in a smaller time frame because it doesn't come out to mid-season. So right now it's slated for Tuesdays and Thursdays. All the way to the back left corner.
So last season, the mainline takeover was sort of like a really rough start to the season, right? Lcq and Adams. Everybody was trouble. Do you guys consider like sort of like week 0 or like a scrimmage week or something like that as a platform for conduct for the season?
So we switched the league spot mid-season, or not mid-season, but between the fall and the spring last year. If you were at the competition RFP panel yesterday, we announced we have partnered with League Spot moving forward. We have played around with the idea of having sort of like a preseason type thing. It's not something we opted to go with this year, but I can see the merits in it. I have complete faith in our platform. I think League Spot is the premier platform for varsity sports. We ran it last year through the spring and didn't have a single problem. And it's only gotten better since then.
Is there going to be any cross-play between member institutions and the open?
No. So the question was, is there any crossplay between member schools in the varsity division and the open division? And the answer is no. The varsity division is exclusively varsity. You will only be playing against NACE members. The only way you could play against an open team is if you self-select it yourself in open.
But you can't select both. Can't be in both.
No.
Not with one team. If you have multiple teams, you can choose to put some in open.
Yeah. So again, you could put one team in varsity, 4 teams in varsity 2, 1 team in open premier, and 4 teams in open premier and open 2. But there's no crossplay between those divisions. Yeah, you.
Okay, so just from my ignorance, when we talk about these teams in multiple things, are we able to move players with the roster lock? Like, how is that? Because like, I'm specifically in Overwatch 2, right? So my idea when I was going to be doing for Overwatch 1 is like my off tank would probably drop to the main tank in Overwatch 2 on my B team, right? And so then if they needed to fill, they can move up. But if I have an open division team and something happens, am I able to move one of my players across division?
So the way our rule sets are currently constructed, there is a mechanism to move a player up, but there is no mechanism to move the player back down. Yeah, there's a limit until it's per. So you have 2 games before your player is stuck. So like if you have sort of your off tank that's in varsity 2 and you need him in varsity 1 for the week, You can move him up, but once he plays 2 games, he's stuck there. Yeah. And there's no, after that happens, there's no mechanism to move the player down. It's primarily built in there to keep teams from like dropping their entire varsity roster to JV and then clubbing some people and then moving back up.
And do you know, like, are there exemptions for that, like COVID or something?
So as far as like the roster lock is concerned, the actual like roster lock window, we do a lot for one emergency sub a semester per team. Like I said, you'll have to flag an admin. If you needed some kind of special exemption beyond that, the only group that has the ability to approve that is the competition council.
What are there mechanisms to keep it from moving across? So if you've got a roster of Varsity Premier, could you move some of those players to your open?
No. There's no mechanism to move players down from varsity. There's a mechanism to move them up to varsity. There's no mechanism to pull them down.
So you're saying the open division is down from varsity?
Structurally, yes.
Okay.
Well, because varsity is a premier offering of NACE, right?
Yes.
Right, so like the open is kind of like, hey guys, look how great we are at NACE.
Come join a varsity. Come become a varsity program. That's exactly what open is. So there's no mechanism to move players down. There's a mechanism to move players up.
The open division, at least our students still under the same, like they have a percentage to compete in the open division. Like sometimes it's just students that come in and they want to be part of the program.
So there's a couple things. So is there a full-time student in the rule sets? Yeah, so there's full-time good standing in the actual rule sets, but also in our constitution and bylaws, like superseding the competition documents, it's full-time good standing for NACE programs. Anybody else? We do have about 12 minutes left, so I would love to get as much content through as we can. If you have any questions, please ask.
So specifically, my kids are going to have this story about Overwatch, right? They're like super worried about how this whole Switch thing will work. Can we just reiterate one more time, like your expectations for the Overwatch to Overwatch 2 split?
So Overwatch 1 is sort of an open tournament. You can view it as, and Overwatch 2 is a league. Now, when Overwatch 2 hits, it's effectively like a preseason patch. You will, like, once Overwatch 2 comes out, you will not be able to log in Overwatch 1. It just won't exist anymore. So from a game perspective, nothing can change. Like you'll be moving to 5 players, but from a competition perspective, you'll just be signing up your team back up for Overwatch 2. Yeah, but so on League Spot, it's really easy because like once you have your Overwatch roster, it sits here. You would like click a button that says submit them in the season, and that would be like the first tournament. And then when that's over, you would literally just click one button that says I want to submit this exact roster in for the other season. So it's very easy.
We do expect for the spring for Overwatch 2 to kind of take on the full schedule and not necessarily be the abbreviated twice a week schedule.
There was a question that came in online. It says, I know there are a lot of issues with the game at the moment, but is there any discussions about adding Halo to the list of titles? I know there has been discussions around Halo. We're not anywhere meaningful. There's not anything currently planned. With that being said, it's sort of the same kind of line I've given you previously, is that if you're looking for a title and you want to add a title, make sure that you fill out the form that comes out. It goes out twice a year, and make sure you talk to your elected leadership. These are the 2 ways for you to communicate to us what it is you're looking for. Carl.
In-person grand finals?
Yes.
In-person
So the question was, are there plans for an in-person grand final? And currently there's plans to run an in-person grand final both fall and spring.
Very quickly, how many teams?
So currently it would be the top 2 teams from the league titles.
Top 2 from each time.
Yeah. The question was how many teams would be at the in-person finals?
For the premier, right? Not
Yeah, it's only for open premier, or not open premier, varsity premier. Question.
You talked about having a 2-game roster lock situation if someone moves up. For a game like Overwatch, if a player is only sick for a few days, that could mean with the schedule that a sub is playing for 2 games, even though they're only sick for a few days. Could you potentially move the 2-game lock to maybe like a 2-week lock, even though in in my opinion, would accomplish the same goal while fixing the.
That would be something, and I hope that would be something I need to write that down, because that's something I would need to bring to the CC. I don't get to unilaterally change the rules. But I think it's a very good question, Jeff.
For varsity premieres, just division, East-West conferences, but there are also sub-conferences.
So yeah, effectively, yes. So you'll either be in an Eastern conference or a Western conference. They each have different start times. And then, but there could be like 10 East Coast conferences. It's just, when I say East versus West, I'm talking about a start time and a geographic location of the school, and not necessarily an individual conference. The question was the East versus West conferences and how they're going to be structured. Go ahead again.
Is there a process to determine how sub-conferences are?
So the question was, is there a process to determine how that happens? So what happens at the end of registration is the admin staff comes through and we sort of seed out these conferences by skill and location. Now, there are a couple schools that historically have like towed the line, and depending on the registration numbers and who registered where, they've been shifted east or west. So for some of these schools in the middle, we are trying to work on a better process to determine where they're going to be, because as of right now, it's happening during the seeding process. We have about 8 minutes left. Shake.
For any of the schools that are in that like middle line that are showing that, or that's something we do some more say into which like conference they would.
So that's not information we've like historically collected. What ends up happening in registration is if we don't move some of these teams over that are in the middle, then a lot of the West Coast conferences suffer because there's not enough teams to literally field their conference.
Okay, question, if it takes it too far afield, then just throw it under the bus, but, what system changes, in the tournament management system, have been implemented or being tested for fall delivery?
A lot. We actually went through the we went through sort of some hard ass looking from the RFP yesterday in the competition section. But for like we picked League Spot, we're running with League Spot again. We're getting an entire page overhaul. Like the as you can see previously, League Spot was pretty bland. It functioned great, but aesthetically it could be better. And we're getting a complete overhaul of our page. We're adding in sort of tickers at the top that show kind of like live scoring of what's happening at the time. We're looking to use that as like an embeddable, put it on the stream.
Would that be available in, like, JSON, or, I mean, that's something that can be
Pulled into other streams.
pulled into-
My understanding is it's getting designed in a way that will let schools like literally use it as a browser source on their OBS.
JSON? Yeah.
That's not just like that.
I was under the impression the ticker, but we can talk, but I was under the impression that the ticker is getting to be embeddable because I was talking about using it on the NACE Starleague broadcast. And in the RFP yesterday, we had Andrew up here. If you need, we were talking just kind of like access to the API. League Spot's API is closed, but they can give you a key to access it. So if there's anything that like your developers want to strip off the site, all you have to do is talk to Andrew.
Who am I talking?
Andrew Barnett.
I'll just call you.
You can call me and then I'll get us in a group call with Andrew Barnett. We're good.
Forgive me, I don't remember if it's like mainline to League Spot last year, so like forgetting a little bit. Does League Spot have like name, in-game name, and then LPIGG link example from League of Legends?
So the question was, are the accounts tied to the platform on League Spot? Currently on League Spot, I think it only shows like the player's name, not their in-game name, as far as the chat functionality goes. But each player has a profile, and in that profile, all of their accounts are linked for the games they're playing. So for like League of Legends, like I'll click like Carl Leon, and it'll show your account name, and then you can OPGG that as you will. Because I know that in mainline we did not have the ability to tie accounts to the mainline account, and with League Spot, that's built-in functionality. Like you're going to tie your account, your email, and your Discord ID all to the same League Spot account, and that sort of information is available to the other team so that they can get a hold of you, so that you have both match chat and then you have access to Discord as well. James.
always ask any questions, just a reminder about the ITCs and ECs. The ITC should be done like before the season actually starts, and the EC should be done before playoffs. And your players won't show up on the EC form if they didn't complete an ITC. So.
So we have 5 minutes for the next session starts. I'm gonna let you guys go so you guys can migrate to whatever session you want to go to and use the bathroom. I highly encourage you, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me via Discord or email, or just come up to me at the convention. I'm open to talk to whoever wants to talk to me. What, this? Yeah. Yeah, I just gotta grab it.